But first, the collapse of the U.S.-Iran ceasefire has clearly left the president very frustrated. Watch this.
We knocked out the first regime. We then knocked out the second regime. We then took out about 25% of this regime. And they're wired a little bit differently. You know, they make deals, and to them, deals are made to be broken. They are extremely unreliable people.
The president's former national security advisor and occasional critic, John Bolton, agrees. On Sunday, he wrote the following, quote, "The problem is evident. U.S. negotiators are talking to people who cannot deliver. The right course is to act swiftly, reimpose the blockade, and choke off Iran's oil revenues." Joining me now, the man who penned those words himself, John Bolton, the former ambassador to the UN and former national security advisor during Trump's first term. Ambassador, I'm glad you're here because Trump said he's going to reinstate the blockade. You suggested it. Potentially he was listening. But he also floated this 20% toll for the passage through the Strait of Hormuz, says we are going to be the guardians of the strait, something his own government has deemed illegal. What are your thoughts on this?
Well, I think it's typical of Trump. Everything's a deal. You know, I'm going to do this. I'm going to get my share of the action here. I'm going to get my 20%. I don't think it's unreasonable at some point to ask countries that benefit from our reopening the strait, the Gulf Arab countries, maybe some of their consumers. We did that back in the very first Gulf War in George H.W. Bush's administration because we're having to act to keep the strait open because of Iran. But charging a 20% toll is ridiculous. I'll do a little math for the president. If oil's at $75 a barrel, that may be below where it is now, a 20% toll would be another $15. So if Trump wants to keep the price of gasoline at the pump down in the United States, he really doesn't want to sell. He doesn't want oil to be at $90 a barrel. It's just this is the way he thinks. I'm going to do something. Somebody's going to pay me for it. This is not strategic thinking, to say the least.
The strait was never even on the table 5 or 6 months ago. OK, and back in March, you told NPR that Trump had not achieved any real regime change in Iran. That has not changed today. So what has he achieved?
Well, I think the strikes by the United States and Israel did extraordinary damage to Iran's military-industrial complex, vast portions of its weaponry. It was a success. It was not a victory. In terms of the Strait of Hormuz, obviously the Iranian regime has pulled the trigger and has tried to close it with considerable success. I think there's a real question how the president never understood this. You know, if you go back to the Carter and Reagan administrations right after the 1979 revolution that brought the Ayatollahs to power, they report in their diaries, beginning in 79 with Carter and then in 81 with Reagan, that they convened NSC meetings to talk about what to do if Iran tried to close the strait. Everybody in the world who can read a map understood that the strait was vulnerable, and why the president wasn't prepared for it, I think that's a question somebody needs to answer. Then
quickly, when he decided to launch the strikes 4 months ago, on a 1 out of 10, 10 being the best, you thought it was a...
Well, militarily, I thought it was probably a 7 or 8. But you don't just attack for the sake of attacking. There needs to be a plan. There needs to be objectives. And to this day, I don't think the administration has coherently set forth what its objectives were. I have said for 20 years, if not more, the only way you're ever going to have real peace and security in the Middle East is to remove the regime in Iran. If that's what Trump set out to do, he made a lot of mistakes on the way, and we're suffering for it now.
Then I'm going to guess that 7 is much lower now.
Well, militarily, I don't think you should underestimate the damage done to Iran. It's going to take a long time to recover. But now that the trigger's been pulled on the Strait of Hormuz, the regime or its various pieces are trying to make that into a political loss for the United States. And clearly the president has no real strategy. He's in a trap of his own making. He didn't think through the implications of using military force, and he's suffering for it now.
Then you might consider my next question another trap of his own making. Bill Pulte, you called his appointment as acting director of national intelligence incomprehensible. The process to replace him with Jay Clayton is back on track, but Pulte's in the job.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think this has anything to do with running the U.S. intelligence community or any of the other duties normally associated with that job. This is clearly to uncover evidence for Trump's fantasy that the 2020 election was stolen. There's talk Trump is going to give a speech to the nation on Thursday night and talk about what he's found, declassifying information there. I think this could turn into a real disaster. Look, I'm not opposed just to Pulte. It's been my view for some time that ODNI itself should be abolished. We should go back to a modified system of the way the intelligence community was organized before. But Pulte's performance is harming us internationally as our intelligence sharing partners look at him and say, there's real risk here with that guy in charge.
John, I'm disappointed to say we are out of time because I have about 42 additional questions, but you'll just have to come back soon. Thank you for joining me today.
Well, thank you for having me.